Hi, I'm Jeff Tirrell, Program Director with Fenton Fitness and Athletics Center, and today I'm going to sort of give you my story. So I've been to a number of different conferences and clinics, and a lot of things that presenters talk about is giving your clients a little bit of background about yourself and your story and why you do what you do. And that's something I typically tend to shy away from. I try not to do too much talking about myself, but I've had a couple of clients over the last few years make comments along the lines, and I think they assume that I've always been in the shape I am now or a certain fitness level or whatnot, and that's really not the case. And so that's one of the reasons for doing this origin story, or my personal story, as well as the challenge that I'll be introducing here in my next YouTube video, a weight loss diet challenge, whatever you want to call it. And I'll detail that in the next video. I don't want to make this one too overly long, but I think this background will be helpful for some people as far as why I'm approaching that challenge in this way, and what that challenge is all about, and everything. So going back to my childhood, as far back as I can remember, when I was very young, I would say I felt like every other kid. Played all the rec league sports, soccer, t-ball, basketball, that every other kid did. I have pictures from when I was very, very young, below third grade, where I was thin, could do most of the things that most other kids could do. But there's some defining moments or some things that really stick out to me through my childhood. For example, I remember, we would do a pull-up challenge in gym class. I don't know how often we did it, if it was, a couple times a year or every month or whatever. I do remember distinctly, though, whenever that time came, struggling profusely to do a chin-up, and being basically, as far as I can remember, the only kid, or maybe one of two kids, that never throughout my entire elementary school time could ever do a single pull-up. I also remember distinctively when we would do the 1 mile run in gym class. I remember never being able to complete that run, and always having to walk that mile, being one of the last kids to complete that mile run, which in my case was a mile walk. I remember, starting in third grade, probably, or after third grade, I remember, I was never obese. I'm not gonna lie and say I was morbidly obese or incredibly fat, but I just remember being chubby, and getting a little bit chubbier as the years went on. I remember probably around fifth grade when I would go to the beach with friends, or especially if girls were present. I remember, going to the beach, not wanting to take my shirt off and starting to swim in a t-shirt because I was self-conscious and nervous about the way I looked. And from there, I remember in sixth grade, I don't even know, boys do what boys do. I remember one of the kids, one of my classmates, challenged me to an arm wrestling match, and I was a little bit heavier kid, so I wasn't tiny. I wasn't muscular or large or anything either, but I was a fat kid. So one of the smallest, skinniest kids in our school challenged me to an arm wrestling match, and I remember losing that arm wrestling match to him. In all fairness, arm wrestling is not really the greatest measure of strength, but I remember that stuck with me because not only was I overweight, but I was incredibly weak. And that, along with the failure to be able to do chin-ups and things like that, would really just sort of highlighted that to me. So that was sort of my childhood growing up. I remember in seventh grade, eighth grade, sixth grade, a couple kids in particular would bully me and pick on me at recess, call me fat, and worse things, but I don't need to get into the language that you would use. But I remember all those things very clearly, and I don't say these things to say I had a bad childhood or anything like that. I had a loving home environment, a great family, and I just I dealt with it, I guess. But I say those things because that was my background. I remember I played football for the first time in seventh grade. First day of practice, I remember getting put on third string. Same thing in eighth grade. It discouraged me so much I didn't play football my freshman year. I wrestled in seventh and eighth grade. Same thing, was second or third string on the wrestling team, and that was sort of continued. So my introduction to fitness, to weights, came in the form of a gym membership when I was in eighth grade. Actually, the fall of my eighth grade year, playing football, and my dad had actually gotten a free trial to the local wellness center, one of only, I think it was actually the only gym in my hometown. and living on a farm and being outside and being active and not wanting to take the time to do it. He didn't want to use it, but my parents knew I had an interest in it, so they let me use this month trial to the local fitness center, and I went every single day. And thank God they saw my interest in it. They got me a gym membership, and really I've never looked back. So that was in 1998 when I was in 8th grade. So almost 19 years ago now, and I really haven't missed a workout since. Not I've worked out every single day, but I've never taken time off or anything of that nature since then. So I say all those things. That was when I started working out. So I got interested I still played football. I wrestled through strength training. I'm not an athletic person. I'm not a natural athlete. I could never be a skilled player in football. I eventually, by my junior and senior year, I really attribute most of it through my effort in the weight room, finally got a varsity spot in wrestling. I was one of the few JV or juniors on our varsity football team that actually got a decent amount of playing time. I was a starter as a senior, was voted second team all area offensive lineman, all area heavyweight wrestler as a senior. So those things all came in my perspective from the weight room and through my efforts working out. But I was still fat. I was still overweight. I got really interested in bodybuilding, and so I trained hard and I lifted heavy and I ate a lot of protein. But I didn't pay attention to get a lot of fruits and vegetables, and I didn't pay attention to caloric intake or energy balance. So I got bigger and stronger, but I also got fatter and fatter. I did my first bodybuilding show after my senior year of high school, and I dieted down to what for me seemed very lean. But in hindsight, I probably was slightly leaner than I walk around at now. Maybe somewhere the 12 to 15% body fat range. But it was a good experience. I liked doing that, and I continued to bodybuild all the way through college. And this is where things sort of got worse for me. I did all sorts of different diets getting ready for a bodybuilding show. So I did ketogenic diets where it was no carbs. I did really low fat diets. I did clean eating. I did most of it under the sun. I mean, not gluten free and not vegan and not some of the stuff that's popular nowadays. But I did many different diet approaches, and all with reasonably the same results. But the big thing, I had really a disguised eating disorder at that time. I would diet down for a bodybuilding show, and I would lose anywhere from 35 to 60 pounds over the course of a year. I would get lean for a bodybuilding show, still not lean enough to really be highly competitive at like a very high level. But again, probably in that at that point throughout college, maybe the 9 to 12% body fat range, which not lean enough to be very competitive, but lean for the average person. And then afterwards, I would basically binge eat and use the excuse of I'm bulking, to get bigger for the next season. And all that would happen is I would go up and down, up and down, up and down with weight, and never really be happy with how I looked, minus maybe 1 month out of the year. Because when I got leaner, I felt small and I felt weak. When I got big, I felt fat and sloppy, even if I was strong. So, and I would get winded going upstairs and just wasn't athletic and didn't feel good doing those things. So at my heaviest so this would have been roughly 1 year after graduating from Western Michigan. I was working as a manager at a gym, and I was on one of these bulking phases and just eating everything I could to get big, to get strong, because that's what I thought you had to do. And that's when I met my wife. And at my heaviest, I was 245 pounds at 5'9", and it was not a pretty look. So when I met her, I was in the midst actually of getting ready for another bodybuilding show, and actually early on in our relationship, I decided not to compete, and I have not competed since. I just really, my perspective on things changed a little bit, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I got down to around 220 pounds, and then, gradually got down a little bit lighter. And my weight in my adult life after we got married went up and down a little bit. When I was in the police academy briefly in San Antonio, at my lowest, I probably got down to the upper 170s at that point, just from all the cardio and not a lot of lifting and not a lot of time to eat a lot. Plus, just from all the running we had to do, it didn't make sense to be heavy. The bulk of my adult life, though, since marrying my wife, is, when I was living in Texas, I would hover between anywhere from 200 to 215 pounds. I started competing in powerlifting around 2012, I believe, and that having weight classes sort of got my weight under a little bit better control. At that point, I'd have to drop weight a little bit for a meet here and there. I would still want to, okay, I'm going to bulk up and get stronger. Not realizing you're just going to have to lose the weight, so it doesn't make much sense to do that. To compete at that weight, whatever weight class I wanted to compete at. The last time I was at my heaviest, the last time I did one of these, illogical bulking phases, was February 2013. So roughly a year after I moved back to Michigan and took the job as program director at Fenton Fitness. And I got up to I think bulking through Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. Horrible idea to do that during that time frame. I got up to about 217, was soft and fat and, not athletic. Since then, since I did a meet that spring, got down to around 200 pounds. The bulk of my life since then, so really over the last 3 years, 2.5 years, I've really hovered between, anywhere from 197 to 205 pounds pretty consistently. So that's been my weight for most of my adult life. I know, though, that when I get lighter, when I get down to around 190, I know that my blood pressure is better. I know my resting pulse rate is better. I know I have more energy. I know I'm more athletic. I know I can run faster. I know I can jump higher. So I say all that stuff in the background just to sort of give you a perspective of my life coming up, and that I have not always been where I am today, that it took effort, that it took time, nearly 2 decades of time, and there's still a constant improvement, and there's always effort being made to get better. So I'll introduce the challenge of what I'm going to be doing and the specifics of it, but the goal now for me, since I've been, at this pretty consistent body weight for about 3 years, give or take 7 pounds, is to drop down about 20 pounds and then see if I can maintain about a 15-pound loss. So drop 20, maybe allow, a 5-pound flexibility. So if I can get under around 185 pounds, and then try to maintain between 185 and 190 for my, the foreseeable future. So, 2 to 3 years there. See how I feel, see how I perform in powerlifting, and just longevity and quality of life for myself, for my wife, for my family. So that's a little bit of my story. Stay tuned for the challenge specifics and how I'm going to approach that, and hope you enjoy. Thanks.